am again, and I thought I'd start the video here today because this is almost the point where I did my first ever short clip where I talked about maybe getting videos on YouTube. Over a month ago, over a year ago now, before COVID struck. I'm not exactly sure which time of the year it was. I'll have to check on the video when I get home, but it was more or less at this point. Those flats behind me there, they weren't there then. I think it was still the old pub that was there that was being demolished. But anyway, here I am again. Selfie stick control just a little bit better. Not quite so many awkward close-ups of my face. I do need to get one of those gimbal things though, so that you're not bouncing up and down as I walk along, and hopefully more natural videos now. I know I've watched many YouTubers from the beginning of their first video, and they always comment how cheesy and awkward and unprofessional and all that kind of stuff they were then compared to how they are now. And it's a learning curve, you know. I'm sure a week, a month, a year from now, I'll have things a lot more tighter with regard to the editing and the making of these. But anyway, that's the way it goes. So I am going to show my first video. The quandary that I found myself in is, so it's over a year ago that I made my first tiny little short videos. One walking down here to the pub, and the next one in almost complete darkness, walking to the pub again down by the side of the river, before any of this COVID stuff happened. And then there was a break. There was a break of several months until COVID hit, lockdown happened, and all the panic that ensued from that, and being furloughed from work, and what happened during that year of being furloughed was lots of tidying and painting and decorating in my flat, and sorting my life out back home in my apartment, and also lots of bike riding and cycling, and well, that's the same thing obviously, but walking, getting out and about as much as I could, both when and when not allowed to by restrictions. So that's what happened during that year. And then over the last few months, instead, it seems to be a fairly quick progression from going out on walks and taking pictures, and mostly just pictures of what I can see around me, and the occasional video of a river or something like that, and it seems to have progressed into more of this style of outing, where I'm actually taking myself on a stick and video recording myself, and commenting, and again those comments seem to be getting longer and longer. My first few videos, sorry, I'm trying to walk quick because there's a bloody madman behind me going much like a cartoon dog. Yeah, okay. Whatever floats your boat. So anyway, so that was that's what happened. And even my first few videos, I think one of them, if you may remember, that I was walking down by the, well, if you're watching this first, then obviously you haven't seen that one yet. What am I talking about? This is where it gets confusing, and I'll explain. my videos, the one that I did walking down by the well, was it? No, it was the Mersey. It was the Mersey down near. I walked down the canal as far as almost as far as. Just a second. Yeah, so I realise there's a reason why I don't film in the urbanish areas between myself and the river, and one of the reasons is because of the noisy traffic, and especially going through that Victorian bridge there. The archway lends itself great to being strong for supporting the railway line above, but not so good for sound acoustics when you're underneath it trying to film a video with traffic going past. Anyway, you didn't need to know all of that. Where was I? Yeah, I was telling you about a video which you may or may not have seen yet, where I walked down the canal towards Altrincham, but then turned off to the left and headed along the River Mersey towards Didsbury, and that was kind of one of my first trips where I literally took quite a 3 or 4 videos, 2, 3, 4 videos sort of thing, of my journey, and made comments along the way. But those comments were no more than a minute each, I think, perhaps 30 seconds each. You can say a lot in 30 seconds, but still, just dipping my toe in the water, so to speak, of the things that are longer videos that then started to emerge as time went on. And I think the crux, the turning point really was possibly when my dad died, and I felt like I had a lot more to say, a lot more to vent, to get off my chest, or maybe that was just I can smell stinky weed. It's disgusting. That really strong skunk. Ugh, enough to make you sick. So yeah, that was probably the trigger. That event in my life was the trigger that then caused me to produce longer videos, and was the catalyst in helping me to get out into the open what I wanted to say, and to make a video of it. Even if still, as I say in my first video, which I'm going to play in a bit, even though I said in that one that it might not come to anything, and this still might not come to anything. It might just be a handful of people like my family, a few friends maybe that find out about it, that actually start listening to all this shizzle. Who knows? But it's good for me. It's therapeutic. And my second video, which I'll also play, insert into this one, where I'm walking down the riverbank in the almost pitch dark. During that video, I also I'm there. You can see me there trying to explore some of the reasons why I'm making the videos. Back then, of course, my dad was alive, and COVID hadn't happened, or was perhaps starting to emerge in China, but certainly hadn't hit here in the UK with full force. And sorry, got distracted by something over there, which I don't know if you'll see him when he pops back up again. Let's see. Where is he? Something just dived down into the water, and oh wow, he's come up all the way over there. Can you see that over there? Maybe not. If you have some sort of zoom function, perhaps. A cormorant, which I've seen more and more regularly. I saw a few. If you haven't watched the video, again, the short video that I did when I walked all the way to Warrington. I saw a couple of cormorants there, possibly a male and a female, because they were slightly different colours, and there's a couple that live on the river just down near where I did the nighttime pub walk video that I'm talking about now. And see, I've reminded myself, and it's good to see them. I must admit, despite being members, me and my brother, of the YOC, and my parents of the RSPB when we were kids, and you know, having a fairly keen interest in wildlife generally, but also in birds, I can't see that I've ever seen a cormorant, or at least not in a river before. Maybe by the sea, is that right? Are they as common as they seem to be now? Have they always been that common, or is that more a recent thing? Because this is totally off topic, by the way, but I've also noticed that herons are a lot more prevalent now, especially the last 10 years perhaps, living in Manchester by the river. To me, in the past, as a kid and growing up, heron was just a bird that you saw very rarely and caught a glimpse of, perhaps in a river, a very remote place of a river. Whereas now they seem to be quite common. Anyway, where was I? I was talking about my nighttime video, and in that you can see, if you watch it, if you haven't seen it already, I'm going to insert it here at some point. You'll notice that even then, back there, I'm struggling to try and explain to myself why I'm doing this. You know, why am I making videos? I'm trying to mull it over in my head, but it was just a way to get my thoughts out into the open. So even before COVID, before my dad died, before any of the events of the past year, I had plans or ideas about making videos, and it's become a reality. And my reasons for doing it back then were manifold, and perhaps I might go into those a little bit. Hi mate, how you doing? You alright? It's okay, you're safe. Okay, here I am again, and I've just spotted dinner for tonight. So if you'll just give me a few minutes. There it is. Hello. And she's actually coming over to prepare herself for me. So, why did I initially start videos back then? Well, or think about doing it? Well, at the time I was disenchanted. I was at work, obviously going into work in the school that I worked in, and but had been single for several years. I've not really had any serious relationship, you know, if serious is the right word. I've not had a relationship that's lasted more than a year for over 10 years, and sometimes it worries me a little bit, but most of the time I'm not bothered. And if you've watched my video yesterday about dating and dating apps, then you'll understand a little bit more about my thought process behind all of that. But I'm really not bothered. But as one of the downsides to being single, and there are many positives, obviously, to being single. You're your own person. You can do what you want when you want. Got no one to please. It's cheaper. Cheaper in some respects. Living together you might save money if you're living together as a couple. But you know, there's pros and cons, obviously, with being in a relationship or not. And towards the last couple of years of being single, having now 10 years of being like it, I've started to not crave, that's the wrong word, but started to think about, oh, it would be nice to have a relationship again. I don't want to die single. You know, I'd much rather live with someone and share love and happiness and kindness and thoughts and conversation and hobbies and activities with. You know, all the things that the millions of things that I would like to have out of being in a relationship with somebody. But I'm not. I haven't been, and maybe as a result of that is I do rely on my local quite a lot as company. You know, I need company. I need people to talk to and human beings to interact with, and because I'm not just gonna. I live on the 13th floor in my flat. I'm not just gonna go home after work every day for the rest of my life up to the 13th floor with panoramic views of the city centre and nobody to interact with. I don't want to be able to see the world out my kitchen or living room window and have nothing to do with it. I'd much rather do something about that. And you know, we talked about clubs and you know, nightclubs, joining clubs that have, you know, where you could go and maybe meet people of your own interest. But one easy option is going to a pub and becoming a local at your pub. Now, my history of my local and my relationship with that place goes back a long way, because I used to work there a good 10-12 years ago perhaps. I worked there for 2 or 3 years on and off. Have been friends with the landlord and friends with lots of people in there that have worked there or work there. All the regulars that go in. It's a lovely family friendly environment with people of all ages that go in there. Hardly ever any trouble. And you know, good beer, and there's other things that we can talk about regarding the pub, but that's for another time. Or maybe it's for now. Because it kind of explains why I'm doing this introduction video, because it was at that time, a year and a bit ago, when I first made my first 2 short videos, both of them on the way to the pub. Why was I going to the pub? Because I wanted some company. Why was I disenchanted and feeling lonely at the time? Well, because I've been single for so long, and my one place in the world, in my local environment, where I could find solace and comfort and contact with other human beings, that one place was going downhill. In my estimation, in my opinion, other people probably loved it. But and I know things change over time, right? I know that if you know English pubs at all, especially pubs that behave like a local pub for local people.
This is a local shop for local people. There's nothing for you here.
Not sort of some national or international chain like Wetherspoons, where you just get crowds of people going in and leaving, going to the next place, where you actually have a local and regular people mixed in with people that are also doing that sort of flirting between places. Then that's the kind of place it was. But and I realised that these places change over time. Give you another couple of examples, maybe, of the castle on Oldham Street in Manchester. I worked there and drank in there for a good couple of years, 2 or 3 years, on and off, back in the early 2000s, probably about 2004, 5, 6, that kind of time. And again, it was just the perfect place because I knew the landlady and her husband, both great people. I knew her son, I knew all the regulars, I worked there, I knew all the staff that worked there. It was great. You feel part of a family, and that's something that's been, it's missing from my life. I have a lovely family, a very small family, but they all live the other side of the country. So the local pub to me, the Castle, was my family. The landlady, Kath, bless her heart, love you to bits, Kath, was she was like my mum to me, and I miss her a lot. And your friends in the place where you drink provide that kind of support, that kind of nest where you can go and feel safe, and that's the kind of pub that I'm attracted to as well. Shortly after the Castle kind of folded for one reason or another, and I ended up working at Bar Fringe, which is just around the corner. Both, again, still now, both great places to drink. So if you're in Manchester, UK, go and check them out. But Bar Fringe, another great pub, introduced me to beers from all over the world. Before it was even popular to sort of drink IPAs from Venezuela and all that kind of stuff. But big selection of beers, a nice garden place to sit out the back, cosy, quirky, great landlady. Again, it fitted the bill. It became that place that the Castle had been before the Castle shut eventually and then reopened. But Bar Fringe served the same purpose for me, and it was a pleasure to work there, pleasure to drink there, and such a wonderful feeling to feel part of something, part of a sort of a network of friends that carried you through life. It's when you're single, and I think I mentioned this the other day, but when you're single and you've got nothing else to do in your life apart from maybe go for a walk at the weekend and play some video game a couple of nights a week, and maybe practice my old clarinet, and what else do I do with myself? Whatever it is I try and fill my time with, getting out for walks. It's always nice to have that place that you can come when you finish work, have a pint, relax, and just talk shit to people. I don't mean in a negative way, just talk a load of rubbish to the people in there, and and share thoughts and ideas, and the conversation could be light-hearted and taking the piss, or it could be about football, which doesn't interest me, but that's the way it goes sometimes, or it could be about politics, or it could be about which beer was good that night. It doesn't matter what the conversation's about. It's just nice to get it all off your chest and sit there, and maybe even just sit in a corner with a newspaper doing the crossword by yourself. Have 5-10 minutes to yourself, just thinking, oh God, I've been dealing with people all day. Thank fuck I can sit down with a pint and a fag and forget all about it. And pubs are great for that. This is quite a long-winded story, but the next place that I worked at was my local, where I would drink now, were it not for COVID. And as I said, 10 years or so ago I worked there, 2 or 3 years on and off, and I've been a local ever since. There are several other good boozers around in the local area where I am, and they each have their different qualities, their different niche. Some are slightly cheaper, some more expensive, some the beer is better, some less so, some have live music, some don't. Most of the places I drink have a great atmosphere, because that's one of the key things that attracts me in, and great bar staff and a friendly, welcoming atmosphere. But none of them fit all of the bills that my local does, in the terms of somewhere, that place where I feel really comfortable just plonking my bum at the end of the day and not being judged about anything. Doesn't matter whether I'm wearing scruffy clothes because I've been working on a farm, or posh lawyer suit, or a fedora because I've just been to a wedding or any other occasion, and it doesn't matter. That's my place, my local. And again, it's a great boozer. If you're in Manchester, it's actually in Salford. Don't slate me for that, Salfordians. It's in Salford. It's called the New Oxford, and it's a good pub. So there's kind of the background story to my relationship with the pub. However, having said all of that, I started off this video by talking about me feeling lonely, and therefore starting to make videos, even though I was actually at the time of making them on the way to the pub. And that's because I felt like it took a downhill. It took a slight downhill curve, even before COVID came and ruined most pubs. My local didn't feel like my local anymore. The number of beers, there were so many beers going on the pumps that the bar staff could barely see through. A ridiculous number of real ales, so that instead of 4 or 5 really good ones, there are 20 that are yeah, okay, not bad. A plague of IPA style Shindigger, Blue Moon, American IPA kind of the fashionable keg things now to have on tap all started to appear, and because of that you then start attracting a different crowd. You get less real ale drinkers who want to just come in with the dog and sit after a good walk, and more young yuppie beardy types, he said, with a humongous growth of unkempt beard. But you know what I mean, the coiffured hipstery types that started appearing. And then there was an issue with the need a cup of tea in a minute, getting a bit dry. Then there was an issue with the furniture. So the furniture before, for many years, was almost like cafe style furniture, mostly pine kind of wood, that kind of thing. Very serviceable, it worked. A few high tables with high stools you could sit at, high stools with backs around the bar, with cushions, and smaller tables that you could sit at as well around. Not a huge place, but two rooms, a front room and a back room, and it all started to change. The furniture got ripped out and replaced by stuff that was ill-sized. Is the best phrase I can think of. The backs, the cushions for the backs were far too puffy. The cushions where you sit your bum were far too narrow, so your legs hung right over the side. They rearranged how things were organised, so there was less place for the regulars to go. It was perhaps better for the passing visitor, but the regulars who sit down the bar and have their own little cosy nooks, that had gone, and that's a shame, because they're your core audience. They're the people that are going to come back day after day after day after day for years, and keep your profits ticking over through times of drought. You get the Christmas crowd that come out just for Christmas, and droves, groups of people getting pissed, and going from pub to pub sometimes, or stopping in one, and and that's the, those kind of things, wedding parties, because there's a cathedral just literally a few hundred yards down the road, Salford Cathedral. Wedding parties coming in, big crowds booking the back room, and trying to take over the place and play their own music, and I don't know, it was heading more towards a kind of a Wetherspoons kind of vibe, and as a result of that, the regulars stopped popping in so much. You couldn't guarantee going in there every night, but not every night, obviously, or maybe some weeks. You couldn't guarantee that there would be someone there that you knew. And as the days and weeks rolled past, I found myself going in there multiple times, back to back, and there would be nobody there I knew. There may even be only one bar staff person that I knew, because they'd replaced those, with unfriendly bar staff. I'm not going to get into anything personal there, but certainly the choice of people that were employed was a little slack, shall we say, I think, and not just my opinion, many people's opinions. So where normally I would go in there, it's been a hard day at work, or it's a Friday night, I fancy a pint, and go and sit in my corner, and the bar staff would welcome you, use your name, know exactly which beer to pour before you'd even got through the door. I have a special pewter mug, so they would get that out straight away, and it'd be full and waiting for me to pay before you know it. Sit on my favourite stool in the corner and get the crossword out, and if there was no one there, but more or less, give or take 10 minutes or so, probably somebody would arrive that I knew, or could say hello to, or have a chat with, or go outside and have a cig with, and or I could go and put some music on the jukebox. So it's a really friendly, welcoming place, even if I'm by myself. And that changed where I would go in, and the corner where I used to sit didn't exist anymore, or there were people blocking it. The beers started to slowly go downhill, so there was really, a lot of the time, there was nothing that I really fancied. The prices continued to go up. The bar staff wouldn't be so greeting and welcoming, or sometimes even know my name, and there would be no regulars, no locals in there to talk to, and I could have walked into a Wetherspoons and got the same kind of treatment, This is not meant as any discredit to the landlord and his partner, because from what the place used to be 15 years ago, a shithole, basically, it's been turned around from a Carling and John Smith's kind of pub into something quite spectacular, with the range of beers, the amount of money that's been spent on it. But I still would say it's started to attract the wrong crowd, and maybe that's good for business, but it's not good for long-term business, in my opinion. You need to find a balance, perhaps. You need to find a balance of something that keeps your regulars coming in, your mainstay, your main source of income needs to be guaranteed, and then start experimenting with other things outside of the box if you want to attract other kinds of customers. That's a very long-winded way of talking about my first video, which was only seconds or a couple of minutes long, but that sort of paints the background picture as to how I felt at the time. Sometimes I would go in there, and if there were people in there that I knew, I didn't feel like there was anything I could talk about with them. I like I say, a lot of people that go in pubs talk about football. I'm not really interested in football. I'll cheer England, when they're playing, badly and losing in the first round of the World Cup. But apart from that, I'm not really that bothered. I've been to see Man City play in the stadium a couple of times, and that was good fun. You know, it's good fun. It's an exciting day out going to a football match, but it's not something I'd choose to do. And supporting a team and being adamant that they're the best, and knowing all of the names and transfer fees and who they're playing next and all this aggregate bollocks, whatever that means, you know, that none of that interests me. Oh, just one more point and we'll be above Middlesbrough. Doesn't even mean anything to me, really. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. For the similar reasons, I'm not interested in politics, because it doesn't matter who's in charge or who wins. You know, it's still the same old shit. At the end of the day, it's still boys from Eton talking about what they think should happen to the country when they've never sort of been on the streets at all. And football is just 22 guys, I think, kicking an inflatable sack around a grass field. I'd rather do that in real life. Well, there's another hobby for me, maybe. Get a politician, chop his head off and kick it around a grass field for a few hours. Yeah, anyway, I knew it would result in bollocks. I'm surprised I kept going for quite so long, actually. Just coming up to the big main road where everything goes tits up and my bollocks gets chopped off. So I'll probably catch up with you after I've guillotined my testicles and continue this discussion. Where did I get to, in case I forget? Oh yeah, I was talking about see, that's how quick it is between one train of thought and the next. I was giving the background about the New Oxford pub, and that isn't to say I have remembered what I was talking about. That isn't to say that there's not people in there that I love to bits and still hold dear to me. You know, there are many. There's at least a dozen, maybe 2 or 3 dozen people like that in there, who I look forward to and take a great joy in seeing their face when I walk through the door, knowing that there's going to be a cheeky remark or a hug or a kiss or a nice cheerful conversation, or you know, some kind of welcome of some kind. And and that's brilliant. You know, there are people that I can go in there and sit down next to and have a bit of a chat to, and there's also people in there that I feel I could sit down and have longer conversations with. Not many of them, though, to be honest with you. I feel like I could have a chat with quite a few people in there before the person or me ran out of things to say. You know, you find what connection you have with people, and that's the way that you establish relationships, which I've had to learn quite late in life, because of not really being allowed to when I was younger. You know, even from the age of 4 or 5 that I can remember, all the way up to more or less when I left home at 18, I was denied that by a tyrant of a father who denied any kind of relationship building outside of the family, and that had a negative impact on me, not just during my childhood and upbringing, but also after I then left home. I had to discover all of those things about how you're meant to interact with other people by myself. You know, all the things that you learn about interactions with other people at the ages of even 1 or 2, you know, but certainly after 3, when, you know, the ages of 4 or 5, when you start going to what's it called, infant school, or nursery or whatever you want to call it where you are. And that's sowing the seeds all the way back then of teaching you what things to do, what not to do, how to behave, how to interact with other human beings. And I didn't get any of that apart from what I had with my brother, I guess, and to some extent with my sister when she came along, and my mum. But it was all stifled. So I had to learn that the hard way, if you like. It's much more difficult. I imagine it's much more difficult learning it when I did than when you pick it up as a kid, because kids, as we know, and scientists have proven, like straight as a kid. Scientists have proven that. Sorry. Speeding up a little bit because I've got people behind me. I'll cut this bit out. Yeah. Scientists have proven that, and we know from our own experience of looking at other people that kids pick things up much quicker than adults do. Subconsciously, kids are much better adapted, programmed. I don't know what the word is. You wouldn't think I'm an English teacher, would you? But I've not really spoken to anyone for a year, so, and I have noticed this as well. This is offshoot 2, by the way. I have noticed that during the last year, not really having much interaction with other people, apart from that's $10.99 please in Tesco's or whatever. And occasional Zoom calls with my mum. I've noticed that during my videos, I'm very often struggling to try and find the right words. I'm doing it even now as I'm speaking to you. Very difficult. It's bizarre the effect that not communicating with anyone has on you. I don't know if anyone else has found that. Maybe only single people, obviously, or people that haven't had any interaction with other people. If you live with someone, or you live with your kids, or you live with your wife or husband or whatever, then maybe it hasn't affected you. Be interested to know. Anyway, that was offshoot 2. Back to offshoot 1, which was what was it? Offshoot 1, which was talking about the fact that I've not really had that kind of interaction. I didn't have that kind of interaction with other people until I left home, and then I had to do it all for myself, and I learned all of those mistakes that you learn as a kid very quickly. I had to learn all those the hard way, and it probably took me a lot longer, and I think probably I'm still learning now how to interact with other people. And if I'm honest with myself, maybe that's one of the factors that has led to me being single for 10 years, and not really being able to be cheesy enough to just be friendly with everybody and chat away with everybody. I soon get bored of small talk, and would rather have a more deep, meaningful conversation with someone about anything at all. But there you go. That's my experience of interacting with other people. And going back to the pub, which is where where offshoot 1 came from. Sorry, just dancing with a jogger. You go left, no, I'll go left. Yo, go right. Oh, right, okay, yeah. So there's very few people in the pub that I feel like I can interact with on as deep a level as I'd like to. I've become a lot more adept at interacting on a superficial level with other people. There's people in the pub that I just say, "Hi John, how you doing? You right?" John was just a name plucked from the air, because I do have a friend called John in the pub, who's not just friendly term basis. You know, we do sit down and have chats. There's people that I can sit down and chat to. I can even push myself if I really have to, and pretend and lie about football if I have to. You know, I'm not completely stupid, not completely inept at those kind of conversations, but I'd rather not. I'd rather either be having a laugh or having a good conversation about something. And there's very few people, lots of people in between. Nobody in the pub that I dislike totally, that I wouldn't say hello to them. Lots of people in between that I can have varying amounts of interaction with, and I can stand, or they can stand, shorter or slightly longer conversations with me before we get bored of each other and end up just being polite or saying, oh, I must go and just speak to Sheila. There's a handful of people, if not less, in the pub that I can speak to on a deeper level than that. There are a handful of people in the pub that I do feel very comfortable with, and would consider friends, although you know, perhaps there hasn't been much communication in the last year since the pub's been shut down. But is that anything to go by? Perhaps not. You know, the people that you're friends with in the pub, if the pub doesn't exist for whatever reason, COVID or whatever, then perhaps those friends don't exist either. That's a weird thing. But you know, just as much as not many people have been in contact with me, I haven't been in contact with many people either. So what goes around comes around. There's possibly one person in the pub that I know I can sit down and have a bloody good old chinwag about anything with, and I think that person knows whose they are. I'm talking about leaving the pub and going off and doing things with people from the pub in other situations, whether it's going to other pubs, going on a pub crawl, going on days out, and there are a handful of people in the pub that I have done that with on numerous occasions, and it's been great fun, and hopefully that will pick up again when we're allowed to go back in, and you know, that kind of thing. But there is one person in particular, and I think again they do know who they are, but I can go in and it's a joy to see their face. I'm filled with it makes me smile when I see their face inside, sitting down. I know that I can sit down next to that person and have a good old chinwag about anything, and have a laugh and a joke, and talk about more serious things, and ask advice, and all the things that